gets to the website. If you haven't been to the website yet, www.thecover.com.au. You can find me there, my podcasts, my columns. You can find Fifth and Dribble there. You can find the Daily Dribble there. There's a couple more that are going to be announced in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out there. I'm in my happy place right now. I'm recording this on Friday night. The Waratahs just got smacked by the Chiefs. It's always a good day when the Waratahs get smacked. I know it happens a lot these days, but when I was growing up, it didn't happen so much. So I'm pumped for that. Pumped for the next game. I'm a little bit concerned the crowd is very small, but I guess I don't know. Melbourne people don't seem to really care about rugby, and why would they? They've got so much other cool stuff going on. You know, they got all the AFL down there. You know, tennis wasn't long ago. The GP a couple of weeks ago. So, and you know, arguably one of the most successful NRL teams ever in the Melbourne Storm. You know, the Melbourne Rebels. Sorry, Melbourne. I know I shit on you a lot, but you haven't been very good ever. Sorry, Melbourne Rebels. Don't have a lot for you at the top of the show. Two things, I think. Yes, two things. So the first one really annoyed me. During the week, Stephen Moore, 39 years old, former Wallaby hooker, former Brumbies hooker, former Reds hooker, arguably one of the best hookers in the world during his time, was called into the Red squad as injury cover. Yep, you heard that correctly. Now, you can't tell me that there's not a club footballer or, you know, and look, this comes back to, Liam, how do we fix Super Rugby? How do we fix the Wallabies? How do we fix rugby in Australia? Well, why can't Brad Thorne get on the phone to the Brumbies? Because they've got 4 really good hookers in Folau Fainga, Connell McInerney, Lachlan Lonergan, and Billy Pollard. So why can't Brad Thorne get on the phone and say, "G'day Dan, Brad here. Had a couple of injuries at training. Can I pull one of the boys? It doesn't matter who. You know, likely they're not going to play, but can I pull one of the boys in case, you know, for a couple of weeks as injury cover, you know, in case we need them." And failing that, you can't tell me there's not a good hooker playing club footy in Brisbane or on the Gold Coast with Bond. Like, you just, they're there. I can tell you they're there. And that's a perfect opportunity to just test someone. Bring someone in from club footy, reward them. As I said, they're likely not going to play anyway. And, you know, to me, this is like a microcosm of what happens in rugby all the time. I used to see this all the time when I was in the system. You'd have, you know, someone locally, and there, you know, it was always, we could always get someone better from Sydney or from Brisbane. You know, we know this guy's here. We'll just get someone else. It just shits me. And to be honest, Stephen Moore, like, you should have just turned it down. Like, I appreciate it. Like, it's an ego stroke for you, but you've had your time, mate. You're 39 years old. You're not going to play Super Rugby again. Get on with your life, please. And, you know, Brad Thorne, like, this is the reason people don't like you. I know you've got the shits with Rugby Australia at the moment because someone was talking shit about you in the press. Well, I'm talking shit about you right now, and I'm happy to have this discussion with you face to face, or come on the podcast. We can talk about it. But you're the head coach. You've got a responsibility to develop the players you have and move Queensland rugby forward. Now, I appreciate you've done a pretty good job there. We'll see how it goes this weekend against the New Zealand teams. But it's just ridiculous. And this, you know, I guess you're the same bloke, Brad, who at 40 odd years old or whatever decided you didn't want to be retired anymore. So you came out of retirement to play for Brisbane City or Brisbane Country. I can't remember which one, when you were supposed to be an assistant coach, and, knocked someone off their perch, knocked someone who maybe has an opportunity to play Super Rugby out of their opportunity to play in the NRC. It's such a narrow way to think. And to think that you're a head coach and you thought that was a good idea, ridiculous. So I think maybe whoever this anonymous source is at Rugby Australia, this is what they mean when they think you're not a team player. The other thing I want to talk about, it's another coaching thing, and I haven't had a chance to really dig into it. I've reached out to a couple of people I know, and they've been a little bit cagey with the information that they were willing to provide. So that's all I'll say. But the Tim Sampson, Simon Cron swap seems interesting to me, like at the Western Force. So, I think Tim has done a really good job with the Force. Considering where they were, and they've maybe gone a little bit backwards this season, but I certainly wouldn't say it's panic stations. And then they announce the new head coach, like in really late at night in an obscure way. And then Tim comes out the next day and sort of has to front the press and just says, we're focused on this year. So it doesn't sound to me like he has a new job. And I also have to say, I haven't spoken to Tim about this yet. I will. But I have reached out to a few people I know, and it sounds like it was a little bit surprising for everyone. Took a few people off guard. So I don't know what to make of it. It is an interesting decision to do it mid-year, and in the way that they did it. But then, I can't really work out why. And it seems to have had a big impact on the playing group. They don't seem to be particularly harmonious anymore. It's just an interesting decision. To me, it sounds like someone external or someone has made a decision, perhaps without going through the correct process or the appropriate process, the stakeholder management and engagement piece, the communications piece probably as well. And then that's how we get to where we got to. So I'm going to try and get to the bottom of it. But yeah, it just seems a little bit fishy to me, the whole thing. It just seems like a very strange way to go about announcing a new coach. So he's not going to start till the end of till next season anyway. So why announce him mid-year? Doesn't that, let's just wait. Let's just wait until till the season's over. Give Sambo the news or whatever. He can go to the players and say, "Hey, we got one. I got one more season here. Let's get it done." And then we move on. Like, it just seems like a very strange process. But having said that, it's a strange organisation. It's the only Super Rugby franchise that's privately held, or completely privately held, separate from the state body. So, separate in the sense that, the high performance unit is privately owned and the state body is still funded by Rugby Australia. I know that most of the unions have got a community rugby arm and a high performance arm, and that's fine. But yeah, it's a strange. Just strange. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it at strange, and I'm sorry I don't have more for you on that. But that's all I'll say. Anyway, this week, Lydia Williams is checking back in. We always have a good chat. We always have some fun. So stick around and listen to that. Once again, thank you to the cover. Thank you to Riverside. Shouts to Riverside, so you will now be able to watch this podcast on Spotify. You can find us on Spotify. But now thank you to Riverside, you'll be able to watch us or you'll be able to listen to us. Before, you could just listen to us. All right. Up next, Lydia Williams. Lydia, welcome back to the show. I know, quick turnaround. You were just in Australia. You've just arrived back in the UK. How are you feeling? How's it all going?
A little bit jet lagged, but I think the good thing been able to sleep all the way through the night without waking up. But yeah, still trying to get back in the time zone.
Yeah, 100%. And it was I guess from an outsider's perspective, from someone watching, a pretty successful trip for the Matildas back to Oz.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a pretty quick trip. Obviously, I think most of us played games that weekend and then flew in and played on Tuesday night, so no Wednesday nights. Um, so I think it was, yeah, quite a quick turnaround. But yeah, we have a great staff that kind of make sure we're all ready to go.
Yeah, and I imagine, I know you guys get to play, you know, sporadically together, but I imagine that's the most challenging part, is to come in, 2 days before and have to have your game plan ready, have to have your body ready, have to have your sleep ready, and then you just kind of go and play. So I imagine, yeah, that's not an easy task sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the I guess the beauty of being a coach is how quickly can do the turnaround and, all the work that you've done previously, how quickly can you adjust to that and make sure everyone's on the same page. So, yeah, I don't want to be a coach for that.
I tell you, like sometimes you do question why you do it. I have moonlit as a sort of high performance women's sevens coach, and the way those tournaments work, they're sort of over 2 days. So you play day one, and day one doesn't matter as much as day two does,
Hmm.
but the work that gets done from the coaching staff between day one and day two is immense, because we have to put all our video review together for each athlete individually, and then as well as the team review. Then we get up at, we're up till sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning doing that, and then you get up at 5:30 to start doing the film review, because you got your first game at 9:30. Like, it's rough.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, thank you. Not
Stick
ready
to
for
playing.
that. Yeah, literally, I'll be like 9 o'clock, 2 a.m. I wouldn't be able to see straight.
And getting to play again in Canberra. When was the last time you got to play in Canberra?
I think they said something like it's been like 9 years or something
Yeah,
crazy like that. So it's been quite a long time.
yeah. And did you enjoy it? You had some family there, had some friends come and watch you play. That's always nice.
Yeah, I had some friends stalking me around the whole stadium, just making sure that. No, yeah, family and friends, and it was nice kind of getting back to Canberra and playing in front of the crowd. I think the last time would have been like national team wise 9 years ago, but obviously Canberra United days. So, yeah, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I had tickets. I was ready to go, but I had a friend who was staying with me, and with my family, and we were just lucky because his room is sort of on the top floor of our house, and he
Hmm.
he texted me. It must have been the Wednesday or Thursday before you guys were due to play here in Canberra, and said, "Oh, mate, I have COVID."
Wow.
So the three of us, my partner and my little boy, was so he drove back to Melbourne, where he's from, and yeah, the three of us were stuck in lockdown for a week. So that was fun. And I don't know what's more annoying, is staying in lockdown for a week and not getting COVID, or
I think I'd rather have code.
yeah. But from what I could tell, good crowd, engaged crowd. It was really good to watch on TV. You certainly don't, my opinion is it's better in person, because you actually get to see a lot of what happens off the ball. But it seemed to be a really receptive crowd, and they seemed to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty right now of playing at home, and I guess the hype building up towards 2023 and the World Cup is that just the crowds are just they're great, and obviously the girls that are playing overseas that are killing it, that always helps to kind of generate that interest, but also, building the confidence within the team. And yeah, it's really exciting to see, girls achieving things that, they're Aussies, and like we always say, our favorite team is the national team.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's exciting seeing, how, players are coming alive and, performing, and then, taking that to home soil is just, it's incredible as well.
yeah, and do you think that what's happened overseas and even in Australia now with the A League women, you know the development of all those competitions has that really had a huge benefit on the national team because of the high level of football that's available now?
Yeah, I think us leaving Australia to play overseas at such young ages and joining the national team at young ages has really kind of matured us quite early, I guess.
Yep.
And now that, these leagues that are based in Europe, US, and those places, we're able to go in there and we're playing against and with the best players in the world and from different countries as well. So, to kind of expand that and draw from those experiences, I think really kind of has matured the team. And um, girls are really performing and doing well. So yeah, it's really exciting to kind of have that option that, the W League kind of fed, or the A League women fed into, where a lot of these girls are now, and how they're performing.
And that the point you mentioned about getting to play with and against some of the best players in the world from all different countries, like that's invaluable for a young player. So to be able to pick someone's brain on your team who maybe even doesn't play the same position, but just looking at the way they approach getting ready for a game or the way they approach training, and then looking at the other side of the pitch and seeing one of the best players in the world, and if you're lucky or unlucky enough to spend some time on the bench just watching them, that stuff. I found as a player, I learnt more that way than from any coach or any film review that I watched on myself.
Yeah, and definitely in Europe, there's a lot of countries that, may not be exposed on the world stage. But some of the players that they have are absolutely incredible.
Mm.
So that's kind of the benefit, I think, when you come to Europe, is that, there's always going to be some amazing players in each, national team, and, you're playing against them and you're like, oh, I have never played with you or against you before. And all of a sudden, like, you're sick. So it's actually really cool, being based in Europe and being like, oh, cool.
There are other players that are good at this sport.
Yeah, it's not just like, mainstream. It's like,
Yeah.
little countries, especially Euros coming up. I think that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and as a sports fan, it's always cool. One of the things I watch every year is March Madness, the NCAA tournament, and it's always cool to see when the small schools beat the big schools. So this year St. Peter's, the Peacocks were the big story, but it sounds like that happens over in Europe too. There's countries produce good athletes. It's just about being able to
Hmm.
to find to find them and provide the pathway for them.
Yeah, 100%.
So speaking of which, FA Women's Super League, not long to go. Uh, Arsenal 1 point back from Chelsea.
I know. We just need 1 point. We just need a draw
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
So
But yeah, we're like hoping and praying.
and like it's I've kept a really close eye on it because obviously having working with you now and the litany of Australian athletes that are over there. It's it seems like there are sort of three teams that are really competitive, and then there's a drop off. But I have to say the battle between you and or Arsenal and Chelsea has been really awesome to watch from a fan's perspective. Anyway,
Yeah, I think it's been going on for quite a number of years now. So yeah, it's exciting. Obviously we just played them in the FA Cup,
yeah,
so I mean, I feel like we always get bound against them because I know it's going to be a good game.
yeah,
So yeah, unfortunately we didn't win that game,
yeah,
but
tough one.
yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully the season goes according to plan. A little bit of luck. We'll see.
yeah, and it's I guess it's different to the way it's played in Australia. It's the you play your fixtures, and then whoever's sitting on top wins. You don't have the semi-final, final, quarterfinal sort of experience. So for some Australian fans, I know they battle with that a little bit, because you don't sort of get the second crack at it like you do with the NRL or with Super Rugby, or
Yeah.
even with the A League. But you know, to me, it makes it more exciting because you really are, as a team, you really are the masters of your own fate. You really can't afford to drop a game that you probably
Mhm.
shouldn't drop, or even draw a game that you probably you probably should win. Unlike the NRL, where you can drop a couple of games during the year and then you make it up at the back end. You really, like, every game is really a must win in this
Yeah.
in this
Yeah,
format.
it's definitely like a longevity thing of how good the management and, your ability as a player to take on information and perform week in and week out, like throughout a whole season. I do kind of miss the finals feelings though. Like that's always like fun and exciting because it's like one game and you're done,
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
go on to
yeah,
the next one. So
yeah.
I haven't decided what I like better yet.
I mean, speaking of which, Melbourne Victory just got a win, well, a few weeks ago now, but just got the win over Sydney FC. And what we were just talking about, Sydney FC for the second year in a row finished top, and were knocked off in the final series by Melbourne. So yeah, like it really does add a different flavour to a final series.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything can happen when it comes to finals. It's how best prepared are you in that one game,
Mm,
versus how best prepared were you throughout a season. So I definitely think that's like a different like niche, and you change your mindset and stuff like that. Obviously, that's what it is for like World Cups and those
mm.
kind of competitions. So yeah, I mean, that's just football. That's just how it always is and how it always goes. And yeah, I mean, I've heard Sydney kind of dominated the whole season and watched some games, and then it comes down to a final, and you can have a blinder of how you play, and then it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah, well, and as you say, sometimes you just need to beat them once, right?
Hmm.
In the last game of the season. So if you can execute, perfectly, or 99% once, and you catch them on a day when they're not at their best, anything can happen. Because I know, back when you were with Canberra United, you had a similar experience where you didn't finish top during the season, but just sort of rode that wave of momentum through to win a title.
Yeah, even City, when we were playing there, I think we finished fourth and then did the whole,
Yeah,
battling fourth and first, and then made it to the final and won that. So, yeah, it does add a different flair to
yeah.
it. So you kind of get a second shot at redemption, which, is always kind of what you want.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's been my experience as a rugby athlete. You always get a second crack at it, I guess. So,
Hmm.
as long as you're in the top, usually the top four, depends on the competition. Sometimes it's top eight. So as long as you're there, then the mantra is, going into the finals, oh, well, we only have to beat them once. You know,
Yeah.
Even if you're playing the top team, you just have to beat them once, execute once, and we're good. So,
Hmm.
but it has been, anyone listening to this podcast would think it's a Melbourne-based podcast because there's a lot happening in Melbourne. But Melbourne Boomers WNBL team got a win. Won the grand final series, and I have to say, being involved in that league, the Boomers were, even though when you looked at the standings, they weren't top. They were,
Hmm.
without question, the best team, most talent, most consistent. But they, you know, the, re- the generally the reason they dropped games was because they had players out with COVID, and there were a lot of moving parts, with a lot of challenges. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, which I have a little bit of a bee in my bonnet about, unfortunately,
Yep.
is the Canberra Capitals were sort of booted, I guess, from the final series because they had a huge cohort of players catch COVID, and the league sort of decided that both games were going to have both finals games were going to have to be played in Perth. So they'd played one. The team got COVID in Perth, flew back to Canberra, and then cancelled the game. So the league gave them a day effectively. So
Oh,
they came out of lockdown on the Tuesday, and then they were going to have to fly to Perth, clear medicals, and play on the Wednesday night. So the league sort of backed them into a corner, which I get the they needed to finish the season, they needed to get it done so that players could be released and go back to the states or whatever. But like to be that inflexible for a final series seems a little bit crazy. Have you ever experienced anything like that from a league?
I mean, obviously there's protocols like even now of, COVID and that kind of thing, but I think the thing is how quickly can you, take government guidelines
Mm,
and then adapt them into sport. So there was, a couple things where it's like, UK is free and open, and there's no check-ins. There's if you want to wear a mask, you wear a mask. If not, do what you need to do. But we still have COVID protocols where it's like, I still have to isolate for X amount, but yet, you could have like a chest infection and it doesn't mean anything.
mm,
So I think now they're starting to change it. If you're symptomatic, obviously you stay inside and get better. But if you're asymptomatic and you know are fit, I guess it's like the same as having a normal flu or I guess chest infection or whatever it is. So yeah, we definitely have had a few things like that. But if you have enough cases where you can't put out a team, then the game gets rescheduled.
mm.
And that's just, how it is. They'll play midweek or
Yep.
they'll make sure at least you have like a couple days to prepare for that.
Yeah, and that was sort of the league's approach, all year. If you couldn't put a team on the court, the game got rescheduled to the back end or midweek or wherever they could put it. And then for whatever reason during the final series, they just that was their drawing the line
Hmm.
in the sand, like we're not doing this anymore. So yeah, and look, maybe the Caps have won 9 or 8, so eight titles. So maybe they thought it was time for someone else to win one.
just like, okay, here's a bone. Here you go.
I also don't want to, like I don't want to. I know media members do this all the time, but I don't want to asterisk Melbourne's achievement, the Boomers' achievement,
Hmm.
because as I said, they were, in my opinion, they were the best team. Most talent, really well rounded team. They could hurt you multiple ways. They can score from three. They could take you inside, really clamp you down defensively. So I think ultimately the result probably would have been the same in terms of
Hmm.
who won. But yeah, to take that opportunity away from a team after being so lenient all year is a little bit frustrating. And I know Caps fans were frustrated, but I know that the broader sort of league supporter base was a little bit frustrated as well. So
Yeah, I think that's always hard, especially when it's like finals and stuff like that. When it's like the one games.
yeah, yeah,
So I think that's something obviously. Yeah, now that COVID is kind of reaching an end of what it was, how quickly can I guess sporting organizations adjust to that. So I think that's still something that's obviously needs to be kind of fixed and figured out a little bit.
yeah, and it's I guess it's harder for basketball too because there's only about 15 players who are
Hmm.
contracted. So, you lose three or four of them, and all of a sudden you're starting to struggle to put a team on the paddock court. So,
A mix of football and basketball now.
yeah.
It's like Gaelic.
But as you say, and it's sort of leagues now you know, you know, it's funny because 3 years ago I couldn't fathom that I'd be talking so much about how leagues are navigating, an illness effectively.
Hmm.
We've dealt with illness, we've dealt with injury forever, but now leagues have the difficult task of navigating that and ensuring that they have enough time to make up fixtures and ensuring player welfare and travel and all of those things and fans as well. So you've obviously got the commercial aspect of it,
Hmm.
with fans and TV broadcast deals and all of that. So I certainly don't envy the position that leagues are in because it is such a difficult environment now to navigate, and hopefully we're through the
Yeah.
worst of it now. Um, But all I'm asking for is some consistency, Lydia.
I know. That's all I want. That's all I need.
just be consistent, guys. That's all I need. I've got two more Melbourne things. The Melbourne Grand Prix was held a couple of weeks ago here in Australia, obviously, and it broke the record for most attended event ever in Melbourne, with
Oof.
419,114 people across the weekend. So that's basically the entire population of Canberra just went went to watch some cars drive around a circuit, which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think sport in general is just like taken off and
Mm,
blowing up. And especially with so long now that we've spent in lockdown and done all these things and been, I guess, starved of public events,
mm,
it's pretty incredible that the first time it's like, okay, yeah, bang.
yeah.
And I think even when, we came home after being away for 2 years and played and had like sellout crowds. And it's just like, obviously, AFL as well. As soon as it's back on, it's like, yeah, we're down, we're
Mm.
on it. And I think obviously it helps that there's like way more documentaries and series about, F1 and more motorsports and that kind of thing. It kind of gives you a good insight of like, oh yeah, this is actually something like more relatable than I thought it would be.
Yeah, like I've always sort of admired F1 and been a
Hmm.
casual fan, and the reason I admire it is because, and I know this isn't the case, but I just imagine it's like six people sitting in a room looking at a car. They're like, how do we make this thing go faster? Like, and then
Hmm.
they just start like adding things and pulling stuff out, and and I appreciate it's got to be more scientific than that, but it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid and I was building like a billy cart with my friends. We're like, oh, we'll put a wing on it and we'll make sure we can
Gosh,
push it
Billy
down this
Carts, that's
hill.
a throwback. Gosh, getting like the like, oh, can I take your wheelbarrow wheel?
Yeah. So that I guess that's the vision I had in my head of the F1 engineers and the drivers sitting around, looking at this car, and then the Drive to Survive documentary came out, and the series came out, and I've honestly never heard, even just walking around the office, my friends, like so many people talk about F1 now. It's
Hmm.
incredible.
No, I think that's like, I don't want to say the next gateway, but having athletes and sports go into little bit more like reality and kind of inside knowledge and footage, it makes you like appreciate things that you're like, oh, that's not so far out anymore, or
Mm.
I really respect that sport or that those skills that maybe I never really noticed. And I think that's like been the great thing is that I guess Netflix and other TV companies are starting to go down that route.
Yeah, because I think the F1 stuff is fascinating because it's a story of the haves and have-nots, really. Like,
Hmm.
you've got your really well resourced and rich teams. You've got all this history in the sport, and then you've got like Haas, who are an American team who are sort of known for their success in sort of NASCAR and the IndyCar series, and being able to juxtapose like Charles Leclerc, who's driving around in a Ferrari, and then Mick Schumacher, who's driving around in a like a
All souped up.
Hyundai.
Yeah.
But and to see because it is it's an individual sport, but you drive as part of a team. So to see that friction sometimes between the two drivers is really compelling. And
Hmm.
I think if you went into any locker room in any sport, you would see a lot of that.
Hmm.
A young player sort of nipping at the heels of a senior player, and that story can become compelling depending on depending on the two personalities. So I've been saying for ages that you know sports, if they want to grow, they should just go to Netflix and pitch that idea and be like, yeah, we'll open up the locker rooms, let's do it.
Yeah. Or even like Hard Knocks, you just see how
Yeah.
successful that's been and seeing all different NFL teams and kind of how they progress through the season and stuff. So that's actually, the more that have been kind of documented, it's honestly just taken off.
Mm. And it sort of got me thinking. So golf, and we're going to talk about golf in a minute. Sorry, I always force a golf chat on you, but but golf has
Sneaky.
yeah, sneaky. But golf has this program. It's called the player impact program, and it basically incentivizes golfers to use social media and create engagement for golf. And so there's obviously some process that they go through where they go through all the analytics of I assume you have to submit your social pages and all of that. So Tiger Woods won the first one, and he hadn't played
Hmm.
golf in a year and a half when he won.
Gosh.
So that just
Freak.
it just gives you an idea of the reach he has for golf. And I think he got like he needs it, but I think he got like $9 or $10 million
Mhm.
as the winner of the player impact program. And it just got me thinking, like, that's an approach I would love to see some other leagues take. And also, I mentioned I'm a college basketball fan, so college sports universities are now allowing their athletes to enter into these things called name, image, and likeness deals, so they can get paid, to use for businesses to use their name and use their image. The top four, top four of those deals, the three of them were female athletes. So Paige
Mhm.
Buckers, Haley Van Lith, and the third one escapes me. Um, but I would love to see some other leagues take that approach and really encourage their athletes to promote the game, promote the league, and then incentivize them at the end of. I think the end of the year is probably the best time to do it.
Yeah.
Um, because as we've just said, like having that visibility on a platform like Netflix, and then if you go onto your Instagram and you're sort of seeing almost the stories playing out on Instagram as they are on Netflix, like you can't escape,
Mhm.
and you're providing more and more access to the sport for people who may not necessarily be that interested in the sport, but they're interested in the stories. So I
Yeah, I
just
definitely think that's something to be worked through because I think a lot of sporting organizations obviously have like image rights and sponsor deals and that
mm,
kind of thing where it clashes. But I
mm,
think doing it especially with college athletes who are trying to break in, or obviously then they're not getting paid
mm.
during their time whilst they're competing in their sport, um, basically until they leave college, and then they can start actually receiving that kind of benefit. um, I mean, we've seen a lot of girls that they're straight out of college and then they come over and it's their first you know
Yeah, first
professional
paycheck.
contract,
Yeah.
and they don't know what to do with it, you know
Yeah.
or they're trying to save all the money that they can, where it's like if they had something before that, then they at least they have a base of anything.
Yeah.
I think the good thing in Australia, we're doing work experience and part-time at when you're
Yeah.
16, so you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
And I think, like, as you say, it's a really good skill to learn at that age, from,
Hmm.
16 to 20, when you're sort of still figuring out what you're doing, to be able to go, okay, I've got, because you're effectively a brand or a business if
Hmm.
you're able to sell your name and your image and your likeness for money, and then being able to, then you start to understand, well, I've got to pay tax on that. I've got to manage this. This has got to last me for this long. When's my next deal coming in? So you start to think a little bit more strategically about what you're doing, and then also, like, you know, who am I and what are the things that I want to be associated with outside of
Hmm.
outside of my sport. And so I think you're right. I think we see it a bit in rugby. Two guys come straight out of school, and then all of a sudden they're earning 80 grand a year, got no idea what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like they have to get in that professional mindset, and I think kind of going the social media route actually helps you to become I'm not just my sport.
Yeah.
So then it's what you're already getting tapped into the world of maybe things that you enjoy or what you want to do after or what you promote and believe in, and I think that's probably the most important thing, that your kind of identity is just not a sporting star.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to be able to have interests that are outside of your sport, because I think,
Mhm.
your sport, like your job, like anything, it can become all consuming if you let it. If you don't have other things that you're doing, if you don't have a family, or you're living away from family, and you might not have that many friends that are uh, outside of your sport or outside of your sporting organization. So I think it's really important to have an escape, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a business, whether it's something else, so that you've got something that can just pull you away from your sport for a little while. Because
Yeah.
I've seen it where people get all consumed in it, and all of a sudden, if your performances aren't going the way you want, it sort of compounds. You start to put a lot of pressure on yourself, and then if you don't have that ability to just pull yourself away for a bit, it can become really challenging to manage. And then,
Mhm.
when you finish up, if you don't have any other interests, as you say, your identity is so closely tied into your sport. It's then really hard to navigate the big scary world for the next 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, and I think golf is kind of doing a good job at that. Like,
Mm,
you know, at least driving interest from other avenues as well. Be like, oh, that's a really cool ad. Oh, who's this person?
mm.
Oh, sporting person. Oh, maybe I'll watch a game. It just kind of helps in, sneaky ways to draw in crowds and kind of, I guess, revenue and more engagement into your sport and you as a person.
Yeah, and I think, the other aspect, making so F1, is a very expensive sport. Golf is a very
Hmm.
expensive sport. So making some of these sports that seem, relatively unattainable, you know, being actually able to see it and understand how it works, and also, humanizing some of the people involved as well, because I think sometimes we forget that athletes are just people.
Hmm. Yep.
So providing that access to a sport that may not have been accessible is really important, and that drives growth, exponentially.
Yep.
So the next thing I want to talk about, Tyler Wright at Bells Beach. Um, this is a really interesting story. She was quite unwell for a couple of years, took 2 years off surfing, and she sort of talked about, she's won a couple of world titles, but actually winning at Bells after all of that's happened, meant so much to her because of all of that she's gone through. Um, and to do to do it, in front of a home crowd is
Hmm.
is really special. Um, yeah, and especially at an iconic place like Bells Beach.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's amazing. Obviously, when you kind of make a comeback or, I guess getting back into the flow of things as an athlete, you always have, a good flow,
Mm.
especially if there has been some hard years. And obviously we produce so many amazing surfers in Australia. Um, but yeah, to win at Bells with kind of all the things that have happened in the past, I think is just, it makes you proud to be an Aussie. Like, I think it's always, you never stop battling as an Australian in everything that you kind of do. And then when it comes to, adding that into sport and seeing that and hearing, the story, it just kind of makes like it just is, it's way more than a win. It's kind of, one of those things for, the country, people that don't even watch surfing have tuned in. And, I think it's kind of really exciting to see, how iconic that was.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned we've produced so many surfers, and it's such a fascinating sport, because it's almost like an art form in the way in the way it's run. It's a real expression of freedom,
Hmm.
and you know no rules, and so the sport is sort of governed really loosely, and there's no sort of, I shouldn't say there's no pathway, because there is a pathway, but there's not sort of a national body like guiding athletes. It's all self-directed, it's all self-driven, it's all, and as a surfing athlete, it's your responsibility to get up and surf. It's your responsibility to lift and do your conditioning and that sort of thing. So, you know, when I sort of reflected on that story and thought, wow, like this person has been at the top of their sport and had all of this hardship, and then has really just taken it upon themselves to then get back. And I appreciate she would have had help along the way, but
Yeah.
for such an individual sport, and surfers always talk about, how much fun they have. It's fun. It's as I say, it's an expression of freedom. You know, to go through all of that and get that win, like, yeah, I'm not afraid to say I got a little tear in my eye. It made me very, as I say, it made me really proud of this person that I don't know, and proud of that, that Aussie battler mentality. Like, let's push through adversity and achieve. And yeah, it was just incredible to listen to her
Yeah.
talk about it, and incredible to watch it happen.
Yeah, I think the cool thing with a lot of Australian athletes is like nothing's ever really been handed to them.
Mm,
Everyone's kind of done it, hard way and grafted and grinded. And um, when you do get that win or victory, it means so much, and you can see the passion. It's never just a paycheck, or it's never just for anything like that. It's because they love what they're doing,
mm,
and that's so exciting to you know know that you've gone through so much hardship, but yet the passion's still there, and then you achieve something with
mm.
that. I think it just makes it even more sweeter.
Yeah, and the other point you mentioned, people who weren't even interested in surfing seem to
Hmm.
have picked this story up, and it's national news. It's not, I think the last time I saw surfing in the national news was when Mick Fanning almost got eaten by that shark.
Oh yeah, punched him in the nose.
Yeah, which also made me to be proud to be an Australian. To be fair, but but it's such an interesting sport because it's a global sport. It's got this huge reach and huge following, but it's not often celebrated here in Australia.
Hmm.
So it's fascinating to see how many people this story has resonated with, and everyone seems to be running with it. So and yeah, surfing's just a fascinating sport to me because it is so beautiful to watch, but it's also one of the only sports that's completely at the discretion of the weather. Like
Yeah.
you have a 2 week window for a tournament, and you've just got to sort of hope that the waves are there.
No, how much can you really practice and kind of know what you're going to do
Yeah,
and stuff like that? Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's really I think it's just such a interesting sport, and you see that everyone is so laid back because you think you have to be,
yeah.
because you have to take each, I guess, wave and session and kind of set as it comes. So I
Mm.
think a lot of surfers as people themselves are just so chill because they have to be.
Yeah, it's a good metaphor for life. Take the set
Mm,
as it comes.
yeah,
And it's certainly been my experience
you can
years ago.
copyright that.
Yeah, yeah. Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But years ago, I worked for a big advertising agency, and one of the clients we had was Kelly Slater through through
Hmm.
a Quicksilver Connect, and we'd lined him up. I say we. I was the shit kicker. I was the person getting the coffees and doing the printing. But we had lined him up to do this event in Australia for the launch of this project that he was working on. That Quicksilver was funding and all of that. And so, you know, so many logistics go into organizing someone of that profile, of that sort of that level of fame. I think he's one of the people who sort of really transcended surfing and is quite famous. Just anyway.
Hmm.
So we 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 the day before we get a message from his manager saying, "Hey, Kelly's. Don't worry about picking Kelly up at the airport. He'll meet you guys at the event. It's all good. Whatever." I'm like,
Yep.
okay, well, it's a bit weird, but that's fine. Whatever. Get to the event. No Kelly. So then, my boss was frantically trying to ring Kelly, trying to ring his agent, whatever. And then he finally got a hold of the agent, and the agent's like, "Yeah, there's a swell. I can't even remember where he said there's a swell, whatever." So Kelly just went. So he's probably going to have to do the event without him.
Fair enough. As they do,
Yeah,
chase the surf.
yeah, and and to be fair, his manager and even Kelly himself, when we had contact with him, he said the same thing, that surfing is the priority, and if there is a swell, you're not going to hear from me for 2 weeks if it lasts
Hmm.
that long. So we kind of knew that was a possibility, but we'd done all this background work, like Like I became a meteorologist, you know, like so that we could get this window for Kelly to come out to Australia. But anyway, like you know, and you know they are very cool people. They're really cool people to talk to because of the way that they approach their sport and the way that they approach life. It is very
Hmm.
take things as they come and you know don't stress about the things you can't control.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Speaking of comebacks, Tiger Woods uh, almost had his leg cut off a year and a half ago and made a pretty sensational comeback at the Masters. The probably the most famous golf tournament in the world. I I played golf yesterday, no, 2 days ago, and I can't walk very well today. So, and I'm a relatively healthy man in my 30s. So, to be able to even just walk around the course on one leg and be competitive is it was actually incredible to watch.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, that's just, I guess, something in him that's just, I mean, he's just so talented in it. So, it's kind of like, you have to be grateful. It could have been the end of his career as a golfer.
yeah,
And then, I think when you kind of reach those, I guess, life could be life changing moments, then when you come back, when you're able to, because there's something in athletes that, you know, you always have a comeback story or just something.
mm,
Um, then it almost makes it, a different, unlocking a different side of the passion and kind of the talent that you have. So, yeah, it's like incredible that he's able to do that still.
yeah. I think he's 47 or 48, and yeah, it was just incredible to watch. So I volunteered. My son gets up very early, and normally, we all sort of get up together and have
Hmm.
breakfast, and 3 hours later, I head off to work. um,
3 hours later.
that's probably an exaggeration,
Yep.
but and so I put my hand up. I said, Kat, why don't you sleep in? I'll I'll look after him. I'll make sure he's fed and whatever. And she's like, oh, how nice. And then when she walks down the stairs, I've got, we're sitting in the living room. So we don't normally eat breakfast in the living room, but I'm sitting on the floor. I've got my son on the little bumbo chair next to me, which
Hmm.
is like a high chair sort of mobile high chair. And he's eating his banana pancakes, watching Tiger Woods. And she just looked at me, shook her head, and she's like, oh, I get it. I see why you volunteered to to do
I'll
breakfast.
volunteer. It's
Yeah,
fine. I don't
yeah,
need to. Don't worry.
but I sort of I was sitting there in awe, and he does my son he didn't know what was going on. He's 9 months old, but I guess I just wanted that might be the last time we get to see Tiger play. So it was
Hmm.
for me it was a cool moment to share with my infant son. But yeah, just to watch someone who is that supremely talented just like fight his body and figure out a way to be competitive. You know, I sort of joked that if he won, it would be the most Tiger Woods thing ever to do. But you know,
Yeah.
but just watching the way he couldn't even bend down to get his ball. He was
Gosh.
he had so limited mobility in that leg. So yeah, I was just so impressed. And you can say what you want about the controversy and all of that. I just don't think we're going to see another athlete like him who can just persevere through pain and just will himself to be successful. I just think,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a very special makeup that he has. Obviously,
Yeah, I always think that this has been kind of the generation that we've seen so many amazing and probably once in a lifetime athletes,
mm,
both stay, come, go. I mean, just like incredible stories. And when you kind of look back at it, you're like, oh yeah, where was I when like, Usain Bolt won that, or
yeah,
Michael Phelps, or LeBron, Serena, like all like Messi, Ronaldo. You're just like, oh, there's so many incredible people that have been on top for so long. You don't
mm,
know how, when's the next bunch that are gonna do that and replicate that.
yeah, and it like the Messi and Ronaldo thing, like like they've given media pundits so much content over the years because
Mhm.
it's always a debate, and like I I've just enjoyed having them. Like we've had two of the greatest footballers, probably ever playing
Mhm.
at the same time. Like we don't have to do the historic like, oh, is Beckham better than Diego like however you want to do it. Like we haven't had to have that debate because we've been able to watch them and they play against
Yeah.
each other, semi regularly. Like it's just been
Mhm.
incredible. And as you say,
Yeah. Just
LeBron, 37 years old, still doing his thing. Tom Brady's decided to come back for
no.
another year.
I know. Seriously, he just wanted to live that up for a good 3 weeks and then come back again.
I think he just spent 2 weeks with his family and was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
you guys are
probably.
crazy. I'm going back to
Is
work."
this what it's like now? Yeah, no, I'm gonna go back for one more season. Wait
And
till the
then
kids get old enough to leave home, and then I'll retire.
yeah, then I'll come back. Maybe another 3 or 4 seasons. But he's another guy, 45, 44, 45 years old. He's talked about playing till he was 50. Like he still plays the game at such a high level.
Oh yeah.
Like as I said, in my 30s, and I can't even play 18 holes of golf without having to do a stringent recovery routine afterwards.
Doing a nice bath after
Yeah.
my golf.
So to be able to and all of these athletes now are, and I'm sure you've got things that you do, the investment in your body and all of that to be able to sustain success for that long it's just been incredible to watch. Most players when I was growing up were done by 32.
Mhm.
Now we're seeing now we're seeing some of the best performances from athletes at 32. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess on that note, and I can't believe it's taken this long for us to talk about it. And she dudded us last time because she announced her retirement the day after we spoke. But um, Ash Barty at 25 years old retiring from tennis.
Gosh,
Yeah,
crazy. You just never would have thought.
nah,
When Australian Open and number one for so long, and then yeah, just done.
like top of her game. But by all all of the optics looking from the outside in, just completely on top of her game, and I guess has decided to go out on her terms. It's it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I actually think it's admirable because you just never know what's happening.
mm,
I guess inside of an athlete,
mm,
and she's just won. I guess the things that she's wanted to win.
mm,
Was it in her plans to go back to back? Probably not. But to win the Australian Open at home and then Wimbledon, obviously, which she always wanted to do, and just kind of achieving the things that you actually set out to achieve, and then being like, oh yeah, ticked a box, cool.
I'm
I
good.
don't have anything. It's actually really admirable, and if you've done what you want to do, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think too, as you say, when you achieve those goals, and not many athletes get to achieve everything that they want to achieve. Not many people in
Hmm.
life, when they sit down as a 10-year-old and say, "This is what I want to do," get to live out those dreams. But when you do, I imagine it's hard to then go, okay, like how do I now like how do I create new goals? We saw like
Hmm.
Michael Jordan, he would create these narratives of people talking shit about him so that he could he could
Keep on
he
going.
could keep going, and you
Yeah.
definitely see LeBron doing the same. He takes something that a media member says and he uses that as fuel for a while. He takes some trash talk and uses that for a while. So, I imagine it is really difficult to refocus and go, well, I've done all of this. So, how do I progress now?
Hmm.
And as you say, I think you're right. I think it is admirable. It is, you know, it's obviously making her happy. So, why wouldn't you do it? Um, and I'm pretty excited to see what's next. She's such a talented individual. Her dad was quoted the other day saying, "Oh, she plays golf 3 or 4 times a year and is the best golfer at her golf club."
Yeah. Oh gosh, well, next time she'll be playing in,
Yeah,
PGA Women's
PGA.
Tour, and yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to take all that talent somewhere, so it will get filtered into some, her next move, which is exciting to see.
Mm. And she's been such a talisman for so many up and coming tennis players, young Australian tennis players. I can see that still carrying on and permeating, and I think she's going to be successful at whatever she does, because she
Hmm.
obviously doesn't do things by halves.
Oh
Otherwise,
yeah.
she probably would have kept playing tennis.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, mate. Well, I've kept you here for about an hour, so I'll let you I'll let you get on
It's
with
all right.
the.
I was up a little bit early, so it's fine.
I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. But I really, as always, really really enjoy catching up with you. And I've purchased an Arsenal shirt, so I'm hoping it
Perfect.
gets here in the next couple of weeks. So I'll send you a photo with me, and I've got one for my little boy too. So we'll have our shirts on, cheering you
Well,
guys
hopefully
on.
it's good news then. That's a good omen,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yes. But yeah, as always, we'll catch up again in a few weeks' time. But thanks again, and yeah, good luck. Play well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh,
Enjoyed chatting, or as always. So next time, hopefully it's good news.
That's right. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lyd.
All right. See you.
Bye. Let's stop. What do you think? Thank you, Lydia. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm pulling for you. Let's go, Arsenal. I'm eagerly awaiting the arrival of my jersey and my son's jersey. We're rooting for you. We're pulling for you. Hopefully, everyone who listens to this podcast is too, because you have always been such a good sport, and we always enjoy catching up. Thank you again to thecover.com.au. Head there, subscribe to the newsletter, click on some links, some ads, some articles. Just click on some stuff. WNBL, I hate you, but I love you. Sorry, producer. Yeah, yep, that was bad. I'll be back in a week's time. Apologise for the break over Easter. I had a guest just decide not to show up, which was a shame. But that's okay. These things happen. That's what happens when you work in media. So I will be back in a week's time. Guests coming up are going to be really good, really exciting, really eclectic mix of people over the next few weeks and months. So hopefully you enjoy that. Once again, thank you to Riverside, thank you to Lydia, thank you to the cover, and thank you to all of you. I hope to hear from you again. We're going to do another mailbag in a couple of weeks with a guest, so I'll announce that on my Instagram page. Thanks all. I will see you in another week.